tradition at the Pembroke Outdoor Sportsman's Club. Whenever there's an election, an all-candidates meeting is held here.
People well behaved. Nobody got radical about anything.
A little surprising considering how vocal anglers and hunters can sometimes be. Or perhaps that's just the Canadian way of being polite.
Last thing we need is like the American-style politics where everyone's sort of mudslinging.
The four candidates in Renfrew North were questioned on a variety of issues relating to conservation of fish and wildlife. There were also queries about the provincial deficit and access to Crown land. On gun control, all agreed that the federal government should pay for any setup costs. By the end of the meeting, many in the audience said they'd heard nothing new.
I really didn't expect anything better or anything different from them, so I can't say I'm impressed, I can't say I'm disappointed.
Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Pembroke.
I'm June Timmons, running in the provincial election.
Oh, okay.
If you have any questions, there are phone numbers here. Or...
Shopping for votes at the local supermarket. This is June Timmons' first try at provincial politics, but she campaigns like a pro.
Hi, Cindy. Hi. Information there if there are phone numbers, if you have any questions. Were you enumerated all right?
I think I offer energy. I think I offer enthusiasm. I think I have worked with and have a knowledge base of many provincial issues that I think are very important to people. And I think I have a vision for where we in Lanark-Renfrew may begin to move.
For June Timmons, that vision includes taking advantage of the growth in high technology, especially in nearby Ottawa, where many people in this riding work.
People want to raise their children in these communities, and on the other hand, be able to offer the best education, have the best access to health care, and be able to offer jobs. And these high-tech connections or information highways, if you like, I think provide us with an area that we have to explore.
Lanark-Renfrew is small-town Ontario. Conservatives have held this mainly rural riding more than 60 years. But that doesn't bother the 51-year-old former teacher, nor does the latest opinion poll that shows overall support for the Liberals slipping.
Well, I know it's a cliche, but the only poll that matters is June the 8th. And I think in the next 2 weeks, people will become more familiar with the Ontario Liberal plan and will be pleased with what it is offering.
Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Almont.
Can be believed to close the credibility gap for tax cuts, spending cuts, job creation, and welfare reform. We unveil with pleasure on behalf of all the taxpayers.
We are going to bring in a Taxpayers Protection Act. We're not just blowing in the wind, so to speak. We're committed to it. We need it.
Hi there, how are you today? Good. My name is Don Pinnell, and I'm leader of the Family Coalition Party.
Founded just 8 years ago, the Family Coalition Party is now the fourth largest political party in Ontario. Don Pinnell has been its leader since day one. He's running in this election in the same riding as Bob Ray. The 57-year-old Burlington native is no stranger to politics. He placed second for the provincial Liberals during the 1975 election and also served as riding president. But a few years later, he became disillusioned.
And I just found that politically, all the parties were leaving me behind because I was trying, even in 1975, to try and instill some family values.
A former businessman, Pinnell says Family Coalition offers voters something different from the three main parties.
We're an alternative the same as the Reform Party was an alternative. So if you want to shake them up in Toronto, just send about 15 or 20 Don Pinnells down there and have the new Premier looking across the floor, and that in itself will rattle things.
It's good for the people of this area, I think, to see that the leader of this new party really has
small town Ontario and the rural areas of Ontario close to his heart and close to and high on his priority list.
In the last election, the FCP garnered some 11,000 votes province-wide. This time, in the 14 Eastern Ontario ridings, there are 2 Family Coalition candidates. Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Pembroke.
Why would you go for the Liberal? The Liberals are causing us all the problems.
I'm more to entertain the kids than that.
How are you today, sir?
He's already done the right thing. He says number 1. So
I'm Dan Callahan. I'm the PC candidate.
Glad to know you.
Pleased to meet you.
Canvassing like this is what he likes most about campaigning.
Pleasure to meet.
The rookie candidate feels voters are comfortable with what he stands for.
Through the people I've met over the course of the campaign, they can relate to me. I'm the average guy, the family man raising kids and trying to struggle through the 90s. They look at their paychecks and they see what they're paying and what's going out in taxes, and I mean, I'm like that too. You look at your paycheck and you go, holy smokes, if I only got what went out in taxes, I'd be able to do something about it, about making purchases. And jobs are important. You know, the Harris Plan is going to create growth in this province, and we're going to take down the barriers to business.
Business is something the 42-year-old Pembroke resident knows about. 15 years as a bank manager and experience in the auto and insurance industries.
Any questions you have or concerns that haven't been addressed as yet?
With the campaign clock ticking down, Dan Callahan hopes to shore up more support. And in Renfrew North, which has been Liberal for 20 years, he has his work cut out for him.
I've been out door to door letting people meet me, let them know that there is another choice, let them know that I'll work hard for them, and they'll have to make the decision. Well, I won't let you down, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. Oh.
Thank you. Okay. See you later.
Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Cobden.
Do you think you expect a big turnout tomorrow?
Getting ready at the returning office in Renfrew North. This is where votes will be tabulated after the polls close tomorrow night at 8. Officials say there could be some confusion in this riding since 2 candidates have the same last name and similar first names.
Dan Callahan's first. And they put an X there. And then they see Stan Callahan and think, oh gosh, I wanted to vote for Stan, not Dan.
Yeah.
And they stroke him out. That's a spoiled ballot.
Some 48,500 people are on the voters list in Renfrew North, one of the largest ridings in Ontario. If your name's not on the list, there's still time to register, depending on where you live.
Anyone living in a rural area who has been missed can also be sworn in at the poll on voting day. But anyone in urban cannot be sworn in at the poll. If they don't come in here by 8 o'clock tonight for a certificate to vote or a proxy to have someone vote in their stead, then they cannot vote tomorrow.
Latest opinion polls suggest 14% of eligible voters are still undecided. Some blame that on a boring campaign.
I have to agree that it's sort of been a dull campaign. I haven't seen anything to really make me, snap my head around and say, oh boy, isn't that interesting.
It's been like a lackluster kind of campaign, which is really bad because the issues that they're dealing with, like, they're really critical.
It's undecided right now.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to vote for yet.
And so after listening to candidates the past 41 days, voters will get their say tomorrow. Polls open at 9 in the morning. Voter turnout is expected to be heavy. Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Pembroke. Renfrew North is a mix of large rural areas and small urban centers like Pembroke and Petawawa. Most voters here take elections seriously. 66% turned out last time. Jobs, taxes, and health care have been major issues. Liberal Sean Conway has represented the riding since 1975. Still, the 43-year-old political veteran is not smug.
I take nothing for granted. I always run as though I'm one vote behind, and the only poll that counts is the poll taken on election night.
Conway won the last election by around 7,000 votes. Ish Teilheimer, the NDP candidate, placed second. Like Conway, the 45-year-old Tileheimer is no stranger to election campaigns. This is his fourth.
I look to the success of Elmer Buchanan, who won in 1990 in Bancroft on his fifth election attempt, and the way he won is by going up there time after time after time and continuing to build.
Ironically, two candidates in Renfrew North have the same last name, Callahan. Dan is running for the Conservatives, Stan the Family Coalition Party. They are not related. 42-year-old Dan Callahan feels voters are comfortable with his ordinary approach.
Through the people I've met over the course of the campaign, they can relate to me. I'm the average guy, the family man raising kids and trying to struggle through the 90s.
Like his namesake, Stan Callahan is also a first-time candidate. But the 62-year-old ex-teacher has been involved in politics since high school.
I think it's an opportunity to put forth to the people some programs and policies that everybody really wants. I think we have to get back to family values.
Rounding out the candidate list in Renfrew North is Andre Giordano. He's running for the Natural Law Party, which promotes programs like transcendental meditation.
People of this county are people who are living well and happy people, and we want to emphasize and to in that direction even more.
Political observers aren't expecting an upset in Renfrew North. It will probably stay Liberal, they say. However, some analysts suggest the margin of Sean Conway's victory could be greatly reduced because of a fickle electorate. Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Pembroke. Welcoming the winner, Sean Conway basks in the afterglow of another election victory, his 7th in a row in Renfrew North.
It has been a very good campaign. I have really appreciated the support.
From the moment results started coming in, it was obvious Conway was going to win. The question was, by how many votes? When everything was tallied, he finished 6,300 votes ahead of the Conservative candidate.
In this business, you hope for just one more vote than your nearest opponent, and I'm very, very encouraged by the share of the Liberal vote here tonight and by the size of my plurality.
I never doubted for any minute that Sean would win this election. I'm disappointed in what's happened across Ontario, but the people have spoken, and we'll go on from here.
The fact Conway's going back to Queen's Park as an opposition member doesn't bother him, but he is concerned with what lies ahead for Ontarians under a Mike Harris government.
And I intend to be particularly active in holding Mr. Harris to account for his revolutionary and radical promises in this campaign.
Conway, who was energy critic in the last legislature, says he'll be happy to take on any other responsibilities given him this time. Dan Nisnik, CHRO News, Pembroke.
I don't even know why someone would do that. I haven't done anything to anybody that I could think of since I've lived here, and I just think it's really humiliating what they've done. It's really got my whole family shooken up. I've completed my Englishes. I got one English here at home in the fall, like I was saying. I'm hopeful to get into this co-op program through RCI.
To cut costs, about 230 kilometers of CP track between Smiths Falls and Mattawa were to close. That's the orange line. The green line was to be a joint route. But the deal was cancelled by rail officials because of court appeals and environmental requirements.
I'm very disappointed.
For 10 years, Les Scott has led the fight to get the tracks out of Pembroke, about 5 kilometers along the Ottawa River. Now, as mayor, Scott says the battle isn't over yet.
We intend to move forward with the city's agenda, and that is the development of the waterfront. CP very well could decide to abandon that section of track and use joint usage around the city of Pembroke. And we're prepared again to go to Toronto, to lobby, to see if we can make that happen.
Susan Van Hoof lives close to tracks that were to be closed. Now that they're not, she hopes to get signals at a nearby crossing.
if they saw fit to put in the flashing lights at Cedar Lane and Burns Drive, then they should have flashing lights here to let the motorists know when the train is coming.
For rail buffs like Gerald Gower, news of the defunct merger is mixed. He knows it could reflect badly on waterfront development in Pembroke, but says it could be good for tourism.
Using the old rails in Pembroke, we can bring as many as 500 tourists a day into the area, and this will create quite an extravaganza of shopping and new businesses.
What happens next isn't clear, but it's a good bet CN and CP officials will go back to the drawing board, since they're losing about $1 billion a year. Dan Nesnick, CHRO News, Pembroke.
Room 231, East Wing.
A smoke-filled hallway and rooms full of patients. Getting everyone out of danger is urgent.
Fire evacuation drill is now in progress.
Who's in charge?
I'm very pleased. I think it went very well. I think the staff reacted very well, given the fact that there's all types of media here taking their pictures as well while they're in the process of moving the patients.
As realistic as we can make it. The more realistic it could have been would be to have real patients. In this case, it was staff members that were acting as patients, and otherwise you're into liabilities and so on.
This mock evacuation was held for two reasons. One, to help the hospital stay current with national health service standards. Secondly, to test the newly installed $1 million fire alarm system here.
The first 2 or 3 minutes in a fire situation is probably most critical, so this increases our response time and makes everybody respond to the scene quicker. We've just finished commissioning the whole project in the last couple of months, so as I said, it was a real good test today to make sure everything was working good.
Dan Nesnick, CHRO News, Pembroke.